This is an update video on my 24-gallon hexagon nano reef. This is a 1991 oceanic hexagon. Yeah, the tank is 30 years old, but I've actually only had it about 5 months, and it's only been set up a little more than 4 months. Obviously, I'm not the original owner, and some of the glass is pretty scratched up, but it's still a nice, interesting tank. It is, of course, highlighted by these wild true perculas. They're the main reason for the tank. There's also a pair of mandarins, which I'll try and find later. They usually weave in and out of the rockwork all the time. Both of them eat pellets, since I spent about 4 months conditioning them, but of course they're hunting pods all the time as well. The most unique part about this tank is there's no wires in the tank. All the flow is done by the return pump, which has 2 random flow generators. The overflow is in the middle, which is just covered by this little mesh, so no fish get in, and the added benefit is this really quiets the overflow. So the tank itself is pretty silent. Not that that was really a concern. There is, of course, a lot of cyanobacteria in this tank. That comes from feeding the tank all the time. And I also have a pretty bad aptasia problem. Here's a giant one. There's, I don't know, dozens in here. I killed them with aptasia X and they just keep getting worse. It's not really a big deal. All the corals in here basically came from my other tanks. This is more a fish tank that has corals than a reef tank. I am hoping the perculas will eventually spawn, and maybe even the mandarins too. Here's the female hunting. And the male is probably not far behind. They usually hang out together quite a bit. Pretty much all the corals are doing well. I did lose one bird's nest frag, but other than that, even the one coral that bleached out, some of it did die, but it actually colored back up. It's not a big deal. There's another one right here. So, like I said, every coral that came into this tank came from my other tank, so none of these frags actually cost me any money. There's the other mandarin. So there is a big chunk of hair algae. This came from the one piece of live rock in the tank. The rest is all dry rock, which I glued to the pipes. You can kind of see here. I don't really care about this because it's in the back and it's sort of an in-tank refugium, because even though these guys do eat pellets, they hunt almost all the time, and that's with feeding them probably 6 to 8 times a day. Just a pinch of pellets at a time, and usually frozen once. So that, and no real filtration outside of the live rock, you're going to get cyanobacteria and other minor problems. And then, of course, the aptasia is constantly fed by all these small particle foods. Overall, I'm quite happy with this tank. It actually turned into a much nicer reef than I was originally planning. There isn't a ton of room to get around and work in the tank. You can kind of see from the top the rock structure is most of the tank, but it worked out pretty good. It is a little bit problematic, but this tank is not about being like my best tank. It's more of a conversation piece tank. If you didn't see the other video, the sump is nothing but a 5-gallon bucket. Right now there's a 7-inch filter sock, just because I had no 4-inch ones clean. And then there's a heater and the return pump. You can see the mandarins are very fat and healthy, and they're happy to eat pellets as well as hunt the copepods in the tank. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching, and happy reefing.